Hello everybody, my name is Suki People. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to the channel if you're new. And today we're going to do what if Deku had an electricity quirk. And it's basically going to be a variety of powers, but it's going to be based in electricity. But yeah, just to remind y'all, I'm almost at 100 subscribers and I'd really appreciate if you subscribe. And of course I have to mention it so people subscribe, because if I don't mention it, no one subscribes. Name me one time you were watching a video and you were like, oh, I should probably subscribe to this guy. Yeah, it's been a while, hasn't it? Exactly. So I gotta mention it. Anyways, let's get into the what if. So we start our story as Deku is born and Ochako gets to hold her baby. And when she holds him, Deku gives her a static shock, which actually shocks her heart, beating it really quickly and making her giggle because it tickled. With her holding her son in glee, because her son truly is, a bundle of joy, little Bolt. A bit of Bolt in her life. So cute. Yeah. And we cut a few years in the future where Deku is 5 and is showing off his electricity quirk that he just unlocked. Right now he's just using his fingers to make an electric current. Basically 2 fingers together with an electric sparking between it. Bakugo then shows off his quirk and everyone cares about that one a lot more. This inspires Deku to make it cooler, just like Bakugo's. Like Kachan, as he would say. Yeah. Anyways, next week or so, Deku comes back with a sick-looking trick where he makes an electric dragon that's as big as let's say, a dog, and makes it fly around the classroom. And everyone's like really excited, and Deku, of course, asked the teacher if he could do this, so the teacher didn't yell at him. And so the teacher was clapping along with when Bakugo gets annoyed, saying it's just a party trick. But Deku was hoping someone would say that, because he grabs an apple from his pocket and tosses it in there, where the dragon flies into it. It starts electricitying and starts cracking, and then explodes with the tiger roaring. I mean, with a bigger dragon head roaring and then startling out, which Bakugo then shuts up because that was actually really fucking cool. So anyways, we then see Bakugo and Deku become nice friends. And yes, considering Deku gets inspired by Bakugo getting stronger, both Deku and Bakugo get strong together through the years. Deku learning more and more tricks as he ages, but of course they're super weak compared to what they're gonna be. Anyways, we get to the middle school years where Deku is sitting in class next to Bakugo because they're good friends, and then the teacher, exclaims that he knows all of them want to be heroes when he said, today we're gonna do, interesting stuff. Who cares? All we care about is Deku, and yeah. Okay. Deku and Bakugo both made plans a long time ago when knowing they were going to go to UA, because how strong they were. They knew they were strong, and yeah, but of course this goes to Bakugo's head, but not to Deku's, because he's nice. And of course, since he's friends with Bakugo, he's less nerdy. Still kind of nerdy, but not so nerdy. Yeah. Anyways, after the day, Bakugo says to Deku, do you want to go to the arcade? Deku says no, and Bakugo just leaves to the arcade by himself. So Deku goes to the path he did in the original, with the slime villain showing up, going to grab Deku, but Deku teleports with an electric dash, which is one of his techniques that he learned as a 6-year-old, where he wanted to escape someone in tag and just dodged him in like hyper fast speeds. Think like a lightning strike. So he dodges the slime villain and then shoots out an electric dragon to tangle around to eat the slime villain and then turn into a giant electricity cage, tasing the slime villain every second because it can't go anywhere. And then Deku then shrinks the cage into a small cage. Then he grabs a bottle off the ground, and then he slowly drips it into the cup. Then Synthenomu is actually unconscious here because he got basically electric chaired in a box. Deku then screws it up, and then All Might shows up, and Deku gives him the bottle. Well, I was saying that was pretty impressive and super cool. I'm kidding. He just says it's impressive, and he's glad that there's new heroes like him, able to quickly and efficiently take out villains. So All Might then puts it in his pocket and then jumps away. And no, the slime villain does not drop out of his pocket. He just jumps away, with Deku smiling in glee because he got to meet All Might right after meeting All Might. So All Might then, just thinks that kid was pretty nice. Deku thinks that was pretty cool. Anyways, we see the 10-month training arc with Bakugo and Deku training with each other. Sometimes Bakugo wins, sometimes Deku wins, but it's pretty even, basically. But we do see Bakugo fall a lot more than Deku, just because of Deku's tricks. Alright, anyways. After the 10-month training arc, they both go to the thing with Deku wearing a black jumpsuit with a yellow lightning bolt going across his chest. Just for theming. Anyways, Deku goes into the exam, aces it because he's still really intelligent, and yeah. Then we go over to the fighting robot bit, and we see Deku just sit there and wait for the thing to ring, because he's not too confident in this version. Oh, also he didn't meet Ochako in this version, considering he was talking to Bako at the time. So he doesn't walk up to Anita, and him never interact. So when Prism explains that, what are all you doing? Get moving. Deku immediately teleports in front of the entire crowd by, electric dashing to the thing in front of every robot, and then he slams his fist into a robot's face, making a hole. Then Deku shoots an electric current through it, which then sends out a buttload of different, like, thunder electricity things to latch on to different robots and to just get electrocuted and fall over. Then Deku clams all of them together into a metal ball, then crushes them, like with some electricity powers, then throws it into a buttload of more, destroying a total of 15. The ball was made up of 10, and that group is made up of 5. Of course, they were all varying points, but doesn't really matter. Just know Deku got a lot of points there, and got some praise from the teachers. Then Deku just starts electric dashing everywhere, and then just touching them, and then they all fall over. And then Deku, wanting to show off, then shoots out his dragon, and actually uses them as fist, brass knuckles, the dragons like engulf his hands and they turn into like punching things. And then Deku just, if you played Marvel Rivals that just came out, think Iron Fist's punches type punch, and then he just punches through all of them turning off as soon as he punches them. But he just keeps going at it to make them look like he's punching them conscious or something. With him punching one in half, then him electrojashing to punch right through one. And honestly, he drags his fist on the ground and Shoryukens one into the air, and then sends out a dragon after the punch, making the dragon fly over, grab the bot, and destroy like 6 of them with this ground slam. Deku lands and then brushes his shoulders, knowing that was pretty cool. Then he keeps electric joshing everywhere until he hears a voice calling out. And yes, it's Ochako still, but just because Deku doesn't know her doesn't mean he isn't going to save her, because that's what heroes do. And Deku, knowing he can still show off here, decided he's going to send out one of his biggest attack. So we see Deku start to like shoot out electricity all over the place, with then his eyes glowing yellow, and it basically thunderclaps and flashes around the area. It looks like thunderclap and flash, and then Deku then puts his hands together, then spins to make a lightning bolt. His body a lightning bolt. It's a combination of the dash and the thunderclap thing. Then he shoots right through the bot, slamming to the ground in a big crater. And then the robot just having a ginormous gaping hole in it, and Deku's electric currents going through it, it turns off. It falls backwards with Deku standing right where the robot's about to fall, but the robot's falls right exactly where the hole is, so Deku is fine. So he climbs out of it, then helps Ochako out of it and carries her over to Recovery Girl. And Ochako thanks, then she asks for his name, saying it's Izuku, with her saying her name is Ochako. With them basically greeting each other and saying they both hope they get into it. Anyways, Deku leaves and meets Baku outside of the arena, and then they leave and talk, with them even going to the arcade and, playing some games. With them playing Street Fighter, with Deku picking Blanca, with Baku choosing Ken. Just a bit more of a Street Fighter reference, because I have Street Fighter on the mind. Yeah. Deku goes home and just chills and waits for his thing to come in. He's not worried if he doesn't get in, but he thinks he'll get in. Then his mom pushes in, showing him the card. He grabs it, opens it into a different room, and sees that he got in, with Aizawa saying that he's impressed with his tactical view. He hopes that he can stay that way in his class. Then Deku immediately knowing what this means, meaning he got into Class 1A. And then Aizawa saying, good luck. And then turns out the transmission. Aizawa not even had to say that he didn't even get to Class 1A, he just knows he did. Anyways, then Baku texts Deku saying that he got in, and Deku says the same. Yeah, then he shows his mom, and his mom tears in joy, because it's still Inko, and she hugs her kid, and Deku gives her the static shock he gave her as a baby, which makes her giggle, and she hugs him even tighter, with Deku hugging her as tight, with some tears falling out, with a bit of a grin. Because he was really hoping he'd get it. Anyways, we continue the story, and we get to Deku getting to Class 1A, wearing his suit, and him wearing a pin of an electric a thunderbolt. Then he talks with Bakugo and Ochako, with Ochako joining in with Bakugo and Deku's friend group. Because why not? She's cool. Yeah. Then Aizawa shows up saying to calm down. Oh yeah, Deku got first. Bakugo's not mad he didn't get first, he's just annoyed. Yeah. Just let you know. Yeah. Then Aizawa explains that they're gonna do some training with the Chakra about the talk, with Deku saying her to cut it with his hand, slicing through his throat to show to cut it. So Moshako, considering this guy saved his life, considering he saved her life, her doesn't matter. She just doesn't bring up the fact that they have orientation. So they all get ready, and Deku gets called up because he's first to throw this ball. And Deku, knowing he can't really, remembering that apple trick he did as a kid, throws the ball and makes the line follow it, like flipping it with its tail. Eventually, the thing wraps around the tiger wraps. Oh my god! The dragon wraps around the ball and shoots it out of its mouth, shooting it to around where Bakugo's was, and then Bakugo throws it and gets as far as Deku. With then Ochai just on and on and on, and yeah, of course, the class 1A says this would look fun, and then Aizawa thinks, really no, maybe this is a good teaching moment. And then he says the thing he says in the original, that you think this looks fun, and then whoever gets last gets expelled. Then Deku just decides he's not gonna start joking around. So when they get to the speed test, he immediately just blitzes blitzes Ida, who he was against. And in the Sen jump, he just straight up clears the entire thing with his electric dash and thunderclap. Then for the grip strength, he really tries for it, but of course he doesn't beat out the people with super strength. But he still gets like a close 5th place. And yeah, so Deku gets a solid 4th place overall. So he doesn't get last, but he doesn't get anything else. Because everyone else was like physically stronger than him, but not physically faster than him. Basically, Deku's a glass cannon. He can hit hard, yes, but if you hit him, he's gonna drop pretty quick. Yeah. Yeah. So Deku's glad, and then is even more relieved when Aizawa says that all of that was a test, and no one's getting expelled. With everyone sighing in relief, with Momo being the sassy girl she is, saying, "Y'all didn't realize this is a test?" Yeah. With then Denki showing up to talk to Deku, saying their quirks are kind of similar by way they're electric. With Deku saying that's pretty cool. And then they talk to each other, and then when school ends, Denki and Deku know each other. Then Deku leaves with Bakugo, Deku, and Ochako. And then they go to the arcade together. We continue our story after Deku has just helped All Might defeat the Nomu and is going home. He just gets home. And then his mom tackles him with a hug, crying her eyes out because her son almost got killed. But him saying it's fine and calming down her heart with his electric powers, because he can do that. And this time Inko has heart problems because of how stressed she gets. And luckily for her, Deku is there to keep her from having heart attacks. Usually. And yeah. Then Deku and Inko sit down and have lunch. I mean, yeah, lunch, I guess. Then Deku just goes to sleep early, and you know. Then a week passes, and Deku goes back to UA. Oh, don't worry, Deku is hanging out with his mom and going shopping with her over that week. And yeah. Then Deku to UA, like I just said. And Aizawa announces the sports festival, and Deku's really pumped because finally he is safe again, and he gets to fight people in a safe environment. Because right now he's just training, and he's hoping that the villains don't bother them again. Yeah. So when they're going to the locker rooms to change into their hero outfit, their hero sports festival outfit, I don't know. Ochako expresses to Deku that she's hoping she can win it to show how strong she is. With Deku hoping that, he wins, but tells Ochako that if she wants to win, she's gonna have to get through me and Bakugo and Todoroki. But Ochako says, doesn't matter to her, she'll win. With Deku saying he likes her optimism. Yeah. So they get their outfits on, and they get into the area before the fight. And yeah. So when the thing rings, Deku just thunderclaps and flashes out of the thing and then dashes forward, up ahead of the entire crowd. Then he dashes even more to a giant robot to short circuit it, and the big robot, remember, and then the robot slams onto the front of the thing, so everyone has to climb around it. Then Deku flashes even more, and then just goes into a full sprint. And then he calms down when he gets close to the hole with the tight ropes and rocks on it, and then he just leaps it, and then thunderclap and flashes over it, and then thinks that's good, so he'll just take a little break. So he takes a little break, and then he continues to run. Dashing sometimes, and sometimes thunderclap and flashing over other obstacles. Until he gets to the mine bit and decides he'll take this one slow, considering he's already super ahead of the other people. So he takes it slow until Todoroki shows up and uses his ice powers to try to get to Deku. So Deku picks up a mine and then throws it at Todoroki, actually hitting Todoroki and pushing him back onto a buttload of other mines, which shoots him even farther back. With Deku using them thinking, what if I shoot myself forward? So Deku jumps onto an explosive in a weird angle and then shoots himself really far forward because of how many explosives are around it. Which Deku goes flying and then dashes into the finish line, winning the dash super easily. And Deku does a little spin roll and then lands, dashing, like sliding into the entrance, with everyone cheering because that was cool looking and how well Deku did. So then, after everyone else was get there, and let's say Todoroki and Bakugo tied this timeline, just cause. Then Deku goes to get his 10,000 points after the teacher announces that, and yeah, he gets the 10 million points, and is hoping someone will join his team. Luckily for him, Ochako, Tokuyami, Denki Kaminari are there to help. Actually, mine is Tokuyami, just the pink-haired girl with the robotic stuff, because she thinks P's perfect for show off her things, because he's the main focus. So Deku gets on top of everyone and is ready to do this. And yeah. So the thing starts, and everyone rushes Deku, of course, but Deku just sends out all of his dragons, pushing 2 teams down, actually. We'll say just Suyu, Mineta, and Shoji. I mean, not Shoji. The Duplo Arms guy. they get knocked down, and I'd say, honestly, I think Monoma's team would be pushed down, but the guy with the shield stuff would just save them with a shield, and then that would push them back up. So they're not fully down. Then Baku goes sprinting at Deku with explosions and shoots out the big one, trying to knock over Deku's team. But Deku, actually, Ochako punches the ground, shooting a rock up that blocks it. It's a big rock, by the way. So it blocks it, exploding back on them, with Baku using this as a distraction to fly at Deku to grab his 10,000 points. But Denki shoots off an electric, like an electric pulse, which does stun the other team, but also stuns Baku, which makes him almost fall, but he saves himself and shoots him back onto his team. This also almost takes out Kaminari, but Deku puts his hand on Kaminari's shoulder and juices him up, making his electric powers back. So then Todoroki's team tries to get the 10 million points, but they're dealt with a little more easier because Deku just puts out a big dragon, and Denki shoots out an even bigger pulse, with the dragon using it as like a power boost, which makes it faster, which makes it slam into that team, which basically hits them like bowling pins. But Todoroki saves himself with an ice pillar while his team tries to get up. And Todoroki just lands on his team again after they get all up, and yeah. And Denki kind of goes back into his dead brain state, but again, Deku gives him more energy. And yeah. I think time has ran out now. So, yeah. Deku wins, nothing bad happens to him. And everyone who passed in the original pass is here. So I don't have to think. So, Deku then gets ready for the fight with Shinso. And I'd say in this timeline, he doesn't get told that Shinso has like a brain control quirk. Well, not told, but like hinted at. Deku just gets in there intending to just fight, no talking. Which is a problem for Shinso, because that's his whole ability. So Shinso goes for the whole insulting, being mean stuff, but Deku being confused why he's even doing this, considering it's a sporting event. Nothing that important here. But yeah. Deku dashes at Shinso with him not answering him, but saying, "What are you talking about?" And punches Shinso straight out of the ring with one punch. Basically like dragon fisting him. He punches him in the chest, shoots at a dragon, and the dragon sends him into outside the ring. Then Deku just stands in the ring, and he won, just like that. And Deku leaves and runs into Endeavor after the fight, with Endeavor saying that his son's gonna win, with Deku saying he shouldn't be so sure, considering Deku's really strong and he knows it. With Endeavor saying that no way my masterpiece would lose to you, with Deku glancing over to him in disgust because he just talked to his son like that, but he didn't say anything. Anyways, Deku gets into the ring with Todoroki standing there after the whole freezing up Shero and Okay, let's cut a little bit back to when Ochako was fighting Bakugo. Deku was sitting in the rings and seeing Ochako getting her face kicked in. And she was losing, and he was feeling really bad for her. But she's trying, and so is Bakugo. But eventually he sees her lose and is sad about him. And then after that, he meets Endeavor. Sorry to go a little bit back there, because I think I skipped a fight. Yeah, and I think Deku would be interested in this fight. Yeah, but anyways, back to the fight with Todoroki and Deku. And then he gets in there, does his stance again, so does Todoroki, and then Midnight says, go! And then Deku, dashes towards Todoroki, trying to send out an electric current, Dragon Fist again. But, Todoroki slide dashes away from it, and tries to shoot an Ice Blast at Deku. But Deku just shoots at a dragon that collisions with it, blowing both the dragon and the glacier up. Then Deku sends out another dragon to grab Todoroki and bite him. But Todoroki freezes it all the way into a big block and then shoots the block with a pillar, shooting the dragon back at Deku. But Deku, of course, thunderclap and flashes on top of the dragon, running up it, spinning, dashing again with a thunderclap and flash, and sends out an electric pulse. But Todoroki gets shot forward, but not knocked out of the ring. He catches himself with an Ice Blast and lands. Then Deku waits for Todoroki to throw an attack, with Todoroki throwing an attack, throwing a giant ice glacier, almost the size as the one Zoro got hit by, but of course a bit smaller because he's already tired. So Deku dashes around it. Almost, he dashes around it with Todoroki thinking he's done, but Deku's in the corner of the ring, basically almost out, but then he dashes towards Todoroki and goes for a punch, and he punches him, sending him back with the punch. And then the ring is severely smaller now, considering that ice block is blocking everything. And then Deku says that he probably should use the fire to get rid of that, or he isn't going to win this. But Todoroki says he is using his quirk, with this making Deku realize that Endeavor's the reason Todoroki isn't fighting at full strength. It's not because Todoroki isn't trying, it's that he doesn't want to. Then Todoroki sends out another Ice Blast, with Deku just breaking it again with the pulse. And Deku says that Todoroki should start using his quirk, or he isn't going to win. Todoroki says, again, he isn't using his quirk. And Deku says he isn't using his quirk, he's using his quirk. With Todoroki then realizing, yes, his superpower is his superpower. And he sends out blows up into fire and melts the giant glacier, with Deku ready to fight more. Then Todoroki sends out a fire blast, with Deku protecting himself with a dragon. The dragon encasing him, shooting him through the fire, and Deku kicks him. But Deku gets grabbed by an ice hand and almost thrown out of the ring. But he dashes to the ground, slamming himself to it. It's a bit of an aggressive one. Then he thunderclaps and flashes towards Deku towards Todoroki, punching him in the face with a backhand punch, pushing Todoroki back. Basically, his back palm hits the back of Todoroki's, hits Todoroki right point blank in the face, knocking him back, spinning. But of course, Todoroki saved himself with a fire blast, landing. Then shoots out a giant glacier again, but Deku does a giant electric pulse, countering the entire ice blast, shooting Todoroki back slightly, but, he's too far from the outside, so it just makes him step back, which Deku uses to send out to start flying up with electric abilities, because, yeah, this is Deku using his full strength, and we see his eyes glow into like a yellow, with crackling lightning coming off it, and we see him send out a giant, I don't know what dragon is, but it has no wings, but it still flies. Shooting that one out, and then it basically flying towards Todoroki. It's gigantuan, by the way. Like, think the ice glacier, it's that big, straightforward. And its head's, like, huge. So it goes to bite Todoroki, but Todoroki shoots out an ice blast, trying to freeze it. But Deku is using this as to advantage, shooting himself through the dragon, actually. And when Todoroki freezes it, Deku is shot out of the mouth of the dragon, and Deku, gets right in front of Todoroki's face, and electric pulses covering the entire arena, but it hits Todoroki and pushes him all the way out of the ring. But, it keeps going, and it sends Todoroki into the crowd, slamming him into the stands. And Deku then lands, utterly exhausted, and falls down, tired. And he skips, oh wait, no. Then after he wakes up, he gets back to the ring, ready to fight Bakugo. Bakugo saying he better not be tired after that fight, with Deku saying, well, he is, but not enough to not beat him. And so he cracks his knuckles, ready to fight Bakugo. And this fight begins with Bakugo sending out a gargantuan explosion first, but of course Deku uses a dragon to cover himself and catches the explosion. And Bakugo rushes in with trying to hit Deku, but Deku is dodging his explosions and punches. Then Deku tries to punch Bakugo, but he blows himself out of the way, shooting around Deku and then shooting Deku in the back. Deku hitting one knee, but dashing upwards to hit a spin kick, and hits him in the head. Bakugo in the head, making him take a knee. Then Deku lands, then does a flip kick, kicking Bakugo in the chin, flipping him, and then Deku charges a punch, like Gon in Hunter x Hunter, and then he punches Bakugo, shooting out then doing the Dragon Fist, but like in a bigger scale, by spitting Bakugo closer to the X of the ring, and then shooting out a gigantic dragon, pushing Bakugo almost out of the ring, but he blows up the dragon and blows himself forward with his other hand. Yeah, he used one hand to take out the dragon and another hand to shoot himself forward. Then he spins over to Deku, actually doing a tiny howitzer, shooting Deku back, like a lot, almost out of the ring. Then Deku clings onto the sand and keeps himself to the ground. Then Deku gets up and relaxed, and Bakugo shakes off his hands because they're a bit shaky after doing those big explosions. And then Deku and Bakugo back into their starting stance, and then Deku starts with dashing forward and then doing a pulse, but Bakugo actually blows up all the way above it, then shoots himself back down, and then tackles Deku with his shoulder, slamming him to the ground. Then he puts a hand next to Deku's face and is about to blow him up, which actually lands, or so Bakugo thinks. Deku has already dashed out of the range and put a dragon there to, make Bakugo feel like he's landing on something. Then Deku dashes back in with a punch to the chest, and then an uppercut to the chin. Then Deku punches the living crap out of Bakugo with a buttload of a flurry of blows, and then he charges one punch to the gut, and this does another Dragon Fist. But then those two dragons split into two dragons, slamming into Bakugo, which makes Deku fly up, grabbing Bakugo, and then he spins to the ground, putting Baku's head first, like Rock Lee did to, I think, Gaara. Then Deku slams into the ground, with Baku recovering slowly, but recovering. Deku also recovering because that also hurt him as well. And then Baku being tired, and Deku also being tired because he's been 2 big fights so far, they just start socking each other. Then they punch each other at the same time, pushing themselves back. Then Deku kicks Baku's knee, pushing him down, and then Deku socks him in the face a few times, and then puts out one last attack, which is to punch Baku in the chest, and then shoot out a gigantuan pulse, which knocks Baku out completely, because all of the energy was pushed straight down, which knocks Baku out, like I said. And then Deku raises his fist like Goku did after beating that one movie villain with a dragon fist. And then Deku picks up Bakugo and then leaves the ring. And Deku wins barely. Right after Deku's out of the sight of everyone, he lays down and goes unconscious. We continue our what if after Deku's just won the UA Sports Festival. And since both Baku and Deku were unconscious, they got their medals after the sports festival. So, after Deku wakes up from his, I guess, unconsciousness, his mom's sitting next to him, tending to him. And when Deku gets up, he smiles at his mom, knowing he won before he went unconscious, with her smiling back because her son won. And yeah. And then Deku gets some information on Ida's brother, Ingenium, and how his legs don't work anymore and he can't be a pro hero anymore. And he thinks that's pretty depressing, actually. And yeah, he feels bad, but there's not much he can do. But yeah. Then when the internships come in, like people wanting to be your coach, I think Deku would get thinking, because like not a lot of heroes have electric abilities, so, and Deku's already too good, so some of them would think they couldn't really teach him anything. Honestly, I think Aizawa would ask if he wanted to be a part of this thing, because Deku seems like the type that would be stealthy in an actual stealth situation, or he needs to learn how to be stealthy. Either or, it doesn't matter. So Deku goes to Aizawa's agency, which is just his house, and so he enters with a boatload of cats swarming him and wanting to be picked up or petted. But Aizawa does a whole cat piss piss thing, and they all come back over to him, and they all then he points them into a direction, and then they go to their little houses and beds. Then Aizawa explains that Deku is too flashy and needs to learn some stealth moves. And so Deku tries to ask Aizawa how he's going to learn that. And Aizawa says that they're going to go on nightly patrols and catch some villains that lurk in the night, not in the day, like where most pro heroes are. But for now, he's gonna help Deku learn other stuff from school, just some later assignments. Some assignments that they're gonna learn later, but he's gonna learn them earlier so he can get a jump on them. So Deku just the whole day pets cats and learns about new stuff from Aizawa. Then, when the night comes, they go out and And Deku's hero outfit is kind of flashy, so Aizawa gives him a spare jumpsuit that he has. It fits kind of well. He has to roll up some sleeves, of course. And then Deku realizes that Aizawa has a hoodie on the back of this thing. Aizawa said that was his earlier design before he came up with this one. That was one before he had hair. So Deku and Aizawa run, Aizawa shows Deku like the stealthy moves that he uses, and they go to stop a villain. Which, let's say like it's a group of thugs with some pretty strong quirks, like muscle quirks. With Aizawa asking Deku how he would handle this. With Deku saying, probably sneak up on the bigger one? No, Aizawa says in a blunt voice. You go for the smallest one. And Deku says, why? To frighten the second strongest one. Then you go for the strongest one, then the second strongest. And then Deku says, that kind of makes sense. And Aizawa says, why? The little one is the weakest, so the second strongest one thinks they're fine. Then the biggest one goes down, and then it shocks him and scares him. And Aizawa says, correct. And then Aizawa snaps off a smoke grenade, clicks it down, and both Deku and Aizawa jump down. With Deku taking out the smallest one, making them go unconscious with his taser stuff. Aizawa takes out the biggest one, and then they both collaboratively punch him in the head. It's basically like a fist bump, but there's a head in between. That guy goes unconscious, and then they pick up the guy who was being robbed. So they bring him out to the area and say to just go home. But the guy is saying thank you, and he appreciates the help. And then he leaves, thanking Aizawa and the kid. He guesses. Then Aizawa says that that's really what we're going to learn today. Midoriya. And Deku says that he hopes he gets to learn a lot. Then the whole agency thing happens, and then Aizawa and Deku get a call that Ida has also been hospitalized and is missing an arm. Actually missing 2 arms. But luckily Todoroki showed up and overpowered Stain to make him run away. But now Ida is an amputee. Luckily for Ida, though, they're prosthetics for him, so now he has robotic arms. Of course, they don't work as good as his original arms, but they work. They can still pick up stuff. And then they hear Stain has been captured by Endeavor, because Stain tried to go for Endeavor like a week later and lost. Then Deku goes home and meets back up with his mother and talks about what Aizawa taught him. So, yeah. And tells her that Ida lost both of his arms. With Inko asking how, and he says that the hero killer Stain got to him. And then they have a conversation on how the hero Stainer is evil. And the next arc is the forest arc. So, just Deku gets there, Aizawa announces it, and they go. No dramatic thing. So, Deku sits on the bus next to Bakugo, Ochako on the other seat, and they chat. Until they come to a abrupt stop, Then they exit and see Aizawa standing outside the door, saying that this is one of the heroes that is going to be teaching them. With her saying that they're going to learn how to survive in the wild in dire situations. And then she taps her foot on the ground and destroys the cliff. And then makes everyone tumble, and Deku dashes to the ground, tumbling. And then Deku looks up and sees the rock monsters, and just immediately Deku sends out a dragon to bite its head off and tear its head off. Then Bako shows up to blow up one that was about to touch Deku. And then Ochako lifts one into the air, and Ida smashes it with his legs. And Ida likes to fight without his arms, because he feels like it's better without them. So they fight through the rock monsters, get to the camp in the exact same time they got in the original. And Aizawa says, "You're late," with them saying they had to fight a bunch of rock monsters, but Aizawa says, "Rock monsters. Just rock monsters." Exactly. He's like embarrassed that his students got defeated by rock monsters. Yeah. Then Deku sees Koda just sitting there, and he walks up to him, puts his hand out, gets hit in the balls, and then Ida shows up again to tell the kid where your manners, and catches Deku with his bionic arm that he accidentally left on the bus. And then he lifts his up, and Koda says he wants nothing to do with heroes. With Deku recovering from getting hit in the balls, saying, "Really?" And then Koda leaves, not wanting to hear Deku. So then the UA looks over to see Class 1B, looking perfectly fine and not on the bus, and still on the bus, with them being irritated at Aizawa, but getting used to it, considering Aizawa is used to this. I mean, they're used to Aizawa doing this. Anyways, they have a bit of rest, and then they train. Deku is, again, training his electric power manipulation, and them saying that Deku needs to learn more than just a dragon. And so Deku learns how to make a giant, a ginormous spear. And he can split them off into multiple spears, or just shoot like up a load of other spears. Yeah, he still has his bow and arrow, but, multiple spears compared to one arrow, a bit more overpowered, I'd say. So, yeah. Then after that day, they, of course, train some more. Then the next day, they make the curry, and Deku realizes there's no Koda anywhere. So he grabs a bowl of curry, and then walks to find Koda. So when he sees the kid on the cliff, he teleports, actually flies up there, because remember, Deku can fly now. And then he puts his foot onto the edge and basically walks up on Koda like Superman. And Koda says to leave him alone, but Deku is planning to, and he puts the curry down and is about to leave when he senses something, tackles Koda being annoyed at first, but then looking behind him to see a giant fist slamming into the bowl of curry, and vice versa, the cliff. Then it's revealed to be Muscular. Muscular says he's going to kill that kid like he killed his parents, because he can tell by the hair, the hat, and the eyes. And then Deku says that's not going to happen. With Muscular then saying that, you're the one we need to get rid of. With Deku saying, Big Boss said you need to die. Which is Shigaraki. He's referring to Shigaraki. Because, Deku helped in almost killing the Nomu and electrocuting his brain. So Deku says to come and try. So Muscular beefs up with his muscles and says, sure. Then he goes to slam onto the ground, but Deku dodges it, shooting a dragon to push Muscular back, but he just grabs the dragon with his bare hands and just snaps its neck. Well, its electric neck. It disperses, and then Deku flies up and then shoots his bow and arrow. Thundering, so 2 shots into Muscular's shoulders and then sending one through his heart, which actually makes his heartbeat speed up a lot quicker, so he gets tired quicker. So Muscular powers down slightly, removing some muscle, but adrenaline hits him, and then he gets bigger and punches Deku in the gut. And luckily for Deku, there was a big dragon head blocking the punch, but it does send him into a wall and slam against it, hurting his back, but he's gonna have to take it. So he lands on his legs, buckling, but gets up, with him seeing that Muscular's already on him, about to punch him with two fists, basically leaping at Deku with 2 fists pushing forward. But Deku, remembering his technique, sends out a giant spear, stabbing Muscular in the rib. And then that sends the Master Spear into the air, actually extending it to the point where every single person can see it. And then he brings it down off the cliff onto the ground, slamming it into the ground. Then he pulls it back like a goddamn pit, like a piggler, then slams it back down, and it blows up into a giant electric field. Which actually blows the leaves back and everything. And Muscular isn't dead, he's just entirely unconscious. Luckily for him, his muscles are keeping him alive by holding the bleeding wound shut. And then Deku picks up Koda and zooms over to Aizawa, knowing where he is, putting Koda next to him, and then Deku says he's going to find his classmates. Then Deku zooms around by thunderclapping, flashing, and dashing, meeting a clone of Dabi that was just about to go fight Aizawa, but Deku punches its head off with one punch. By, he was going really fast, so he punched its head off real quick. Not meaning to do that, but then realizing it's goop and it falls apart, he takes a sigh of relief. Thinking it's someone else's quirk, of like cloning or something. And then Deku meets up with Bakugo, who's about to get kidnapped by Compress, but Deku shows up to break Compress's hand by actually breaking off the bone and making it bend down. So Compress yells in pain, but he uses his other hand to kidnap Bakugo. But of course Deku's not going to let that happen, so he uses one of his dragons to grab Compress before he can fly away, slamming him into the ground, grabbing the marble and getting out of there. But Dabi has another word to say about that, shooting a fireball at Deku, but Deku dodges it again, trying to do a kick, realizing this is the real deal. Going for a kick, Dabi then fires another fire blast, basically contorting the other fire blast. But Deku again, thunderclap and flashes upwards, and then thunder does a shockwave, which actually makes Dabi take a knee in pain. Then Twice shows up to send out more Dabi clones, because that's the only person's height he knows. And then those Dabi clones set out a legion of fire. But Deku then encases himself in a dragon. It's disintegrating a lot faster than it did in the sports festival, but Deku doesn't need it to hold, needs it to get him out of the fire. So Deku gets out of the fire, jumping out of it. Some of his clothes being slightly burnt, because he jumped out of it a bit too early. But then Deku double kicks, drop kicks Twice's face, knocking him out. And then he spews out, then he gets teleported by Koryuri back to the lair, and we see him slam onto the bar table and fall behind the table. And Dabi gets annoyed, sending out a bigger fire blast so Deku can't dodge it, having to face it full on and can't, get out of it. So Deku has to take this fire head on, and yeah, it's burning like a lot, and it's actually making his skin bubble and burn. And then Deku, pushing through the fire in a whole lot of pain, dashes to grab Dabi's hand, pulling him, Dabi over, and then socking him in the chest, and then sending out a giant dragon fist to grab Dabi and then slam him into the ground, knocking him unconscious. Barely. And then Koryuri teleports him also slamming onto the desk, but falling forward instead of backwards. And also Compress, after being knocked out from shock after his arm breaking, he also gets teleported, leaving only Twice, Spinner, and Magneto. And then they're notified where he is, so they run over to him. Luckily for them, they're able to do this. So Toga goes for a stab, but Deku dodges it, catching the knife and kneeing Toga in the snout, breaking her nose, but she doesn't care, of course, because it's Toga. She grabs a second one of her stabby things to suck blood from, and stabbing Deku in the leg, actually sucking some blood out, which makes Deku gag. But he grabs the thing that's sucking the blood's tube, tears it in half with his electric powers, then blinds Toga with the blood. Then he tears the tube out and stabs it into Toga's leg. Then punches her across the face, knocking her out. Remember, Deku's punching these guys really fast with electric punches. That's why they're getting knocked out really quickly. Oh, we're going to mention Deku wears rings, electric rings, so he can use his electric powers more effectively without his hero outfit. So that's why he's able to knock out the League of Villains with a couple hits. So Toga's out and then gets teleported with Koryuri in disgust of how the state she's in. Her leg stabbed, blood on her face, and missing her knife. Then Spinner and the Magni lady showed up. And Deku, being really tired right now, is run off of fumes right now. If you're wondering where everyone else is, let's say Baku in this timeline didn't team up with Todoroki, he just went by himself because they didn't want to go at him. So it took Todoroki forever to find Baku, but of course in this timeline he doesn't find him, and so Deku is just holding his marble in his right hand. And so Deku then sends out all the energy he got into one pulse, which knocks out Spinner, but doesn't knock out the magnet lady because she uses her magnet to absorb the lightning. And then she's able to knock Deku out with one big wallop to the head. And Magnet grabs the marble, goes to the portal in a haste. With Deku being unconscious, luckily for him, before Shigaraki can put his hand through the portal, Todoroki shows up to shoot the fire at the portal. keeping Deku from dying. So Deku is unconscious and dragged to the hospital because he is on fire, has a stab wound, has a sprained back, and is extremely exhausted. So Deku goes to the hospital and, fix up his leg, and Deku waking up in a shock immediately to tell everyone that he's going to go get Bakugo, and Momo says that she got a tracker on the Nomu, and Deku says could he borrow it, but she says that she would like to go. Then Kirishima, then Ida, then Ochako, all volunteer to go. So they go, and yeah, they get there, and of course they're about to go save Bakugo, but the heroes are already there, bursting through the doors, and the same thing that happens in the original happens there. But when All Might goes to grab Bakugo, but he teleports, and then All for One blows up the building. And I'll say, Deku, instead of being frightened, he feels anger, because, this guy took his friend away. So Deku shoots himself, thunderclap and flashing, and flying at the same time, towards All for One while he's doing his speech about All for One being, All Might being weak and old. And Deku then slams into All for One being shocked because no one steps up to him like this. And then shooting a buttload of electric punches into him, grabbing his face as well, and shooting a gargantuan electric current through his head. But of course he regenerates it, grabs Deku by the leg, and throws him down. Then trying to shoot him with his tendrils. But Deku sends out a dragon to catch all of those, and they all shatter on the dragon, dispersing the dragon too. Then Deku lands on his legs and tells All for One, "This is for my friend." And All for One says that he's gonna die here, just like All Might is. With All Might telling young Midoriya to get the heck out of here. But Deku says that this guy hurt Bakugo, and he's not gonna let that slide. With the crowd that is watching this cheering for Deku, hoping he doesn't die. And that line was pretty cool. So Deku then powers up, and lightning starts sparking off of him, and the lightning sometimes turns blue. And then he opens his eyes again with it being lightning blue instead of yellow blue. And his hair also glows blue slightly, with some blue spikes slightly. Yeah, he's going Super Saiyan. I'm kidding. But yeah, he's powering up and then flies up into the air, and then All for One and Deku have clashes, like Dragon Ball. Yeah, more Dragon Ball references. And then Deku kicks All for One down, breaking some of his mask off, but he doesn't care, so he takes the whole thing off because he can still breathe without the mask. It's just harder. Then All for One shoots a gigantic blast at Deku, but Deku just counters it with his pulse, which envelops All for One's thing and actually scorches his arm. But Deku, underestimated All for One after that and got checked, and then got those tendril things shot through his stomach. But he actually grabs All for One, and then he pulses again, actually tearing All for One's arm off with the pulse, because the pulse makes a barrier, which cuts All for One's arm off. Then Deku tears it out and coughs out blood, because ouch. Then All for One interferes, tackling. Then All Might interferes, tackling All for One and starting beating his head in. But, of course, like in the original, All for One punches off All Might, and he starts to weaken himself and gets into a skinny form, with Deku being shocked and recovering from the bleed at the holes. He then, seeing this, focuses his energy into his palms and burns the hole close. Deku's still coughing out a buttload of blood after that. He cleans it up, and then he sends out his giant electric, um, pushing himself back into that electric blue state. He flies up, and then makes 5 separate gargantuan pillars. Then he sends out 2 of them, which all for one deflects one, gets hit by another into the chest. And then Deku sends all of the rest of them, and then those hitting like missiles instead of spears. So they blow up, all for one, with him losing his entire suit. Yeah, I don't think his suit surviving all of that explosion. And luckily for us, he does not have a wee-wee. So he destroys it, pulls out the spear, and then throws it at Deku. But Deku, of course, being the one that made it, just absorbs back into his body. Then Deku, like, dashes and punches All For One, twirling him into the air. With how many punches he's doing, he's basically Sonicking him by hitting him like a ball. Then Deku puts his fist through All For One, then puts his hand on his head again, actually pushing his hand through his body, touching the back of his head, and then putting his other hand on the front of his face, and then shooting a lot of, like, most of his energy into All For One's brain, almost mushing it, and actually he does mush it, and then his nose All For One's nose, non-existent nose, actually bleeds. By, the place where his nose used to be bleeds, and his body he gushes out a lot of blood. And then Deku pulses, then tears his arm out, then dives into the ground, because they're actually pretty high up right now, then just spam pulses All For One, which actually starts to disintegrate his body. Then Deku just slams into the ground, does a dragon fist by pulling his fist up and slamming it on the ground, then it exploding, sounding like a dragon roar. Then Deku pulls another one back and just starts punching All For One, with all of them sounding like roars. And then Deku pulls back 2 fists, punching All For One in the chest, that making a pulse/dragon roar, which then we see that All For One has been turned to straight up atoms. Then Deku pulls his fist out, cleaning them off. Then he just falls over unconscious. But All For One reforms, because we've seen him survive off ashes. And before he can do anything, All For One, All Might shows up with his fully charged punch to knock All For One straight out. Then Deku goes to the hospital, revered as a hero for saving All Might. In their eyes, they say that he saved them, because he gave him enough time to hit that final blow. Then he gets like a buttload of flowers, candies, and chocolates for saving All Might. So Deku grins with happiness after waking up, with Inko showing up with her pain medicine in her hand, because she's almost had a heart attack when she saw this on the news. But she was able to find old medicine in the back of her cabinet and save herself from dying. So then Deku climbs out of bed with the wound still attached to him, and hugs his mom and cries aggressively, and says he's sorry that he did that. They're saying she's just glad he's alive. And then they both have a really, really, really good cry. So we continue our story after Deku has fought All For One, almost got himself killed, but he survived, has woken up, and has talked to his mom, and I think Deku took a bit of a break after that. But after his break, he went back to school, and Todoroki invited him to go to his father's agency, which he agreed to, because, why not? It's a nice learning experience from the number 1 hero. Oh, by the way, he missed the whole Endeavor fighting the High-End Nomu. He missed it because he was on he was at a different country. But yeah. So Deku goes over and sees Endeavor's massive scar and asks where he got that. Endeavor saying, in a fight with the Nomu. And Deku says that I guess he's glad he won. Endeavor says he's glad too. But yeah. So Endeavor teaches Deku how to, use his electricity more effectively. Because usually Deku just sends out stuff and hope it hits. But Endeavor suggests that he uses his environment more. With Deku thinking maybe he should. So, yeah. Anyways, so we get to the part where about a lot of people are gonna get hurt, but All Might shows up to save a girl, with Bako saving her. And Deku tells All Might to stay safe, because losing him would be the end of the world, really. Be losing the symbol of peace. All Might says that he can't just stand by while people get hurt. Bako then chimes in telling him he's stupid, because there are 4 pro heroes here, including the number 1 now. So, after that, Deku gets an alert on his phone saying from Aizawa that there's been that they're going to go to the League of Villains base of operations. It's nearby of where Deku is, so he tells him to stay safe. Yeah. So Deku puts his phone away after that to help with more people leave the area, because Aizawa was doing the whole League of Villain tirade. And then Deku hears a giant explosion and looks over to see, the craters and stuff. So Shiguragi bursts from the ground after destroying all of it, and then flies over towards the biggest city to destroy it. Just to prove a point. Of course, Endeavor intercepts him, gets his butt kicked, and then Shigaraki mocks him with the pose that Endeavor did to the Nomu. Deku then sees Shigaraki flying over to them, which they are in close proximity to the biggest city. And so Deku flies over towards Shigaraki, with Bako and Todoroki following close behind. And then Shigaraki turns around and then just shoots a giant shockwave towards them, because he doesn't care about them at all. Because neither of them have All for One. Honestly, in the city, so is All Might. All Might's in the city, so he's trying to grab the reverence of it. In this version, One for All has not been given away to anyone yet. So then, Todoroki and Bakugo and Deku keep following Shigaraki, while Todoroki goes to check on Endeavor. And Shigaraki doesn't really care about them, he's just flying straight towards All Might. Eventually, Bakugo realizes that he's flying towards All Might. Then that gets Shigaraki's attention, because he's realizing they're trying to stop him. So he flies over to Deku, trying to grab him, but Deku just dashes around him, grabbing his head again, trying to tase it. But before he can do it, he gets shockwaved away. Then Bakugo shoots out a huge explosion, which Shigaraki just tanks completely, flying over to Bakugo. But Deku dashes, thunderclap and flashes over, and Dragon Fist him, punching him closer to the ground and smashing him into it, revealing a buttload of rocks flying in the air. So Deku shoots out electric tentacles, and then Deku just throws a buttload of them at him, remembering the teachings of Endeavor to use his environment. So Shigaraki gets buried under the rubble, and then he bursts out of it to reach towards Deku. But Deku, knowing that's basically a death sentence, reveals that he has an electric sword that bursts from his knuckles like sideways. So, yeah. Then Shigaraki reels back in annoyance and then tries to swipe at Deku with another hand. But Deku cuts that one off as well, and then does a huge shockwave. Then shoots out a buttload of dragons from his pipe things, because remember, he's wearing his hero outfit, like he is in the original. Then Shigaraki gets hit with both dragons. Then they combine into one big dragon and just start swiping Shiraki. Eventually, the pro heroes show up to help Deku and All for One. I mean, Deku and Bakugo. So Aizawa stuns Shigaraki, and yeah. So with Endeavor coming in with a flash fist punching Shigaraki off Deku because they were in close proximity. And so Bakugo and Deku back up because Endeavor's the pro hero, so he should be helping. So then all the pro heroes start jumping Shigaraki, but Shigaraki, being how strong he is, he just sends out a shockwave, flying over to the Dragon Lady, swiping one of her wings, making her unable to fly. Then he throws her at Endeavor. Endeavor, his sidekick with the green hair, and I'll say Todoroki, slamming him to the ground, pinning them. Then Shigaraki then puts that hand out to make a bigger shockwave to basically crush him. But Deku flies in to punch him directly in the gut, sending out a dragon fist. And then he just basically sends out more dragons, and then sends out one of his spears, and then sends out multiple spears, and like throws a couple on one hand, and then throws another with another hand. Basically, the dragons smack into him, crushing him to the ground. This big spear smashes into him, crushing him and making him bleed. We'll say this made Aizawa lose sight of him, so Shigaraki doesn't lose the fight. Then Deku throws a buttload of spears, and then the spears show up to stab and pin Shigaraki. Then Deku flies up to like a really high point, powers up into that, electric blue state, then dashes to the ground, supersonic style. Then he spins like Sonic, and as he's doing this, Shigaraki is trying to pull the sword out with his feet. But Aizawa at the same time is getting his vision back, so he's able to see him. And as Deku is about to crash into Shigaraki, he pushes the blade out, which makes Deku have to dodge, missing Shigaraki by like an inch, blowing up where Shigaraki, like close vicinity, which makes his entire body scorch all over the place, which almost kills him, but he shoots out tendrils from his back that stab Aizawa in the gut, which makes him blink because he got stabbed, which makes him be able to regenerate. Then he pulls the tendrils closer to him, tearing them out. By the way, Deku is still recovering from that final, hopefully. He was hoping for his final smash, but it didn't work. So he looks over to see Aizawa being pulled in. Again, he's face touch. But Deku uses his tendrils, his electric tendrils, to pull him back from him. Basically like Black Whip. Deku's just using Black Whip, basically. But they're coming from his fingernails. So he pulls them, Shigaraki back, and it basically is the same scene from the anime. And Aizawa has, of course, point-blank seeing, so he's able to cancel out the decay quirk. Basically, every single time Aizawa looks away, he cancels a different quirk. Luckily for him, it was the decay quirk. So Deku pulls Shigaraki off Aizawa, throwing him away. Then he uses his, still in his blue state, he basically flies around Shigaraki basically leaving after images while he punches him, shooting out more and more Dragon Fist, which individually sends out more dragons that also start hitting him. Then Deku flies back with his arms crossed, and then he sends out an electric blast from his tiara thing, which shoots a giant spear out, which stabs Shigaraki again, with Deku manipulating this one up to the sky. and then he blows it up, flying through the explosion right up to deck all Shigaraki. That was a lot of words. Shigaraki. And then he blows up and, sends out a shockwave, which burns Shigaraki's skin, but he regenerates it because he still has that active. And then Shigaraki starts beating Deku up by first grabbing his leg, palming his face, then crushing, I guess, fracturing his skull with his grip. Then tries to tear Deku's leg off, but he dashes out, luckily, which with him holding his head, because, it's fractured. Then he starts crashing down. Bakugo grabs him before he falls and lands. Then Shigaraki then just starts getting exhausted. And then finally Endeavor pushes the Dragon Lady off him because she's unconscious, and then flies over to Shigaraki. Then it just starts beating the shit out of Shigaraki because he's how tired he is. So eventually, All For One takes control of Shigaraki and then kicks all the pros off him, and then lands on Gaiketsumakia. And Dabi reveals himself to be Toya, and then they leave. Deku at this time is unconscious because, he kind of used all of his power and has a fractured skull. Then, after Deku has recovered from his head injury, he gets up from the hospital bed, feeling his leg, realizing it's utterly broken. Deku's out of commission. So then he trains to get it back to healed state. Then every single one of the Class 1A gets ready for the second war, because, no vigilante arc here. Then they learn that Aoyama is the UA traitor. Then they all collectively agree that All For One is to blame here. So Aoyama gets set free. And, So the thing starts with All For One coming out of the portal to confront Aoyama for not betraying the UA class states, but Aoyama blows off his sleeve. Then All For One reveals his villains, and then the pro heroes reveal the pro heroes, with Deku included. So the battle starts with Bakugo and everyone just jumping Shigaraki, with Endeavor fighting All For One, with Shigaraki and Dabi trading off with Todoroki. Okay. So Shigaraki starts out by revealing his disgusting finger stuff and just starts beating back the pro heroes. Mirko then kicks Shigaraki's head, actually concaving it, pushing it back, but he heals it and then slaps her away. Then Best Jeanist grabs him and ties him up, which gives Bakugo the chance to send out a big explosion, and Deku the chance to fly above and send out 3 giant spears, throwing them at him. 2 pinning him, and then another. Then the last one to blow him up. And it blows him up, but he tanks it and then gets into his armored finger form, whatever it's called. And then he starts killing everyone, basically. Mirko, shutdown down. Best Jeanist, down. Bakugo, dead. The string guy, down. It's just Deku up. And then Deku powers up into his electric state. And then he basically dodges all of Shigaraki and is hitting him with really fast punches. He's trained it, so it's basically even stronger. And Shigaraki struggles to hit Deku, and Deku just kicks the heck out of him. He shoots kicks, he throws a buttload of spears, like the mini ones. Then he teleports in the air, shooting a bow and arrow into Shigaraki's head. Electric bow and arrow, which basically shock fries his system. Then Deku spins around with the spear again, throwing it into Shigaraki, which shoots him even more onto the ground. Then Deku sends out a buttload of dragons, which basically entangle him with their bodies, like a snake. Then they tighten on him, which actually breaks most of Shigaraki's bones. Of course, he regenerates them. Then he tears all of the dragons off him, and then goes for a bunch of Deku. But he dodges it, because he's as fast as lightning. And then Deku puts a fist against Shigaraki, and then the fist, teleports, I guess, upside down into Shigaraki's gut, which makes him throw up through his mask. Throw up blood, I mean. Then the blood hits Deku's face, and then Deku just rapid punches Shigaraki's gut, which makes him puke out more blood. And then he basically lifts his body like Garo did to that one guy. I think you know what I'm talking about. Then Deku sends out a dragon fist. The last punch is a dragon fist, which sends out a gargantuan dragon. Remember that dragon that he sent out against Todoroki? Yeah, that dragon. Which starts beating the crap out of Shigaraki. By the way, Deku's in this dragon, like Kung Fu Panda 4, where Po is in the... or is it... oh no, that's Kung Fu Panda 3, where he's in the dragon and fighting Kai. Basically like that. Then Deku powers up even more, sending the entire dragon, exiting the dragon, by the way, into Shigaraki, which pins him. While he's pinned, All For One, the pro heroes announced that All For One is coming over to Shigaraki. So Deku says he isn't coming over. Then he flies in the direction of All For One, and the dragon fights Shigaraki, which actually puts up an amazing fight against him because of how big it is. By the way, the All Might is with Shigaraki, All For One, because All For One wants to make an example of him. So Deku flies over to see All For One trying to kill All Might in front of him, but then he realized that All For One, All Might's not in his hands anymore, with him in Deku's. So then he sends out a dragon that All Might lands on and flies away. While all this is happening, Baku's being revived, and he gets up to see Shigaraki fighting a big dragon, and him winning against the dragon. So Baku decides to hold him off, which Baku does a lot better than he did in the original. He does better than he did the first time. And then the fight against Shigaraki and All For One happens, which basically just Deku just punching All For One and punching him away from when he tries to fly behind him. Deku sends out a dragon to bite him and push him back. Then Deku flies into All For One, tackling him into the ground, making a gigantic crater. Then he sends out a buttload of tendrils from his back, flying up, making the rocks fly below him, smashing into All For One. With Deku seeing All For One trying to burst through it, trying to think that it would distract Deku. But Deku flies backwards, doing basically a flying backwards flip, landing in front of All For One, grabbing his shoulders, pushing him forward, which makes him, run out of time because he's using too much energy to push Deku back, which makes him turn into a baby, and then Deku grabs the baby's neck and snaps it, which makes the baby just fully disintegrate. Then Deku basically zooms over to where Shigaraki is, seeing Bakugo about to get grabbed, but Deku grabs his hand, then incinerating it because of how much he's glowing. Then Deku realizes that his electric powers are just enhanced for some reason. And it is revealed that the reason his powers are so enhanced is because of the My UA Academy crashing to the ground, sending out all of its electric currents, which Deku, undoubtedly, has been sending out his shockwave currents through it, which then they all come back to him, juicing him up. Then Deku dashes and just really punches Shigaraki in the chest, which makes his chest burst and then shoot out all kinds of organs, which Deku doesn't care. Then he punches off Shigaraki's mouth off. Then Shigaraki then gets out of that form to be better at fighting. Then Deku dodges a swipe that he was about to do, and then he punches Shigaraki's jaw off. Then he grabs Shigaraki's shoulder, then tearing his arm off. Then he uses a ginormous spear to cut his legs off. Then we look over to see Monoma looking at Shigaraki, so Shigaraki can't regenerate. Then Deku punches his chest through Shigaraki and making him stand on his leg, basically be held by Deku, and then Deku tears his arm off, pushing him off him, making him land on the ground on his back. Then Deku flies up, grabbing Shigaraki with an electric tendril by his throat, which makes his head burn, actually gooing his brain, making his brain flow out of his non-existent mouth and his nose. Luckily for Deku, Monoma can see really far up. Then Deku sends Shigaraki all the way up to basically the atmosphere. Then he punches Shigaraki with that makes him spin. Then Deku flies up, spinning, and then Superman smashes into him, sending him to the ground. And then he's sending out all of the energy he's been using so far into this one attack. And he smashes into the ground, making a gargantuan crater, which made Monoma actually fly back and most of everyone fly back. Then Deku basically grovels upwards, and then he looks down to see Shigaraki is ash. Not ash, like nothing. There's nothing there. He's been atomized, I guess. Then Deku sits down, awake actually, somehow. Then he does a big exhale and then waves his hand for some help, which Baku slides down and picks him up out of the crater and blows them both up onto the thing, putting Deku down, and Deku sleeps. Then the epilogue happens, and Deku's a pro hero, and we see his pro hero outfit actually having stripes of lightning, blue lightning, and his hair has a streak of blue through it, because how many times he's used the blue form now, that it just gave him a blue streak. And we see Deku with goggles this time, so he can protect his eyes more often. And his gloves are now like gloves, like chainmail. He has chainmail hand gloves, and they wear rings. And Deku has more, I guess, pillars? I can't remember what I called them. But the thing's on his back, and gave his tiara more of them, and he has 3 on his back. 1 big one, 2 small ones. And that's Deku's pro hero outfit in the future. And I would say Deku got top 4. Yeah, but yeah, that's where I'm gonna end it. Hope you liked the series. Like, subscribe, hit the post notification bells. Like always, I'd really appreciate it if you did that. But anyways, have a good day. Well, I hope you have a good day, and goodbye.